My ex of 6 years cheated on me and got with the girl a day after we ended. 9 weeks in, he got her pregnant, but she found out about me pretty soon in and chose to stay and do that. She continues to look at my reposts and cry about me, and her friends have given me grief saying, think about how the new girl feels, as if she didn't know about me and didn't care about me when he's playing happy families with her after doing that to me. She even said, if you left her for me, that's okay, we can work through it, amongst other stuff. He told barefaced lies, which I really can't move past. It was very damaging lies. I also marked the most important parts with a heart if you decide to read on and can't be bothered to read it all. This will probably be long as I'm writing in my phone notes, but I just need to get it all out. I'm really struggling to forgive myself for reactive abuse, and how I reacted one time, it eats me up every day. And I hate the fact I somehow still miss him after everything. I wake up first thing, and all I think about is what he's done to me. It overtakes my brain. I was in a relationship for 6 years. In that time, I'd say we had 2 good years before it turned very sour. Please don't judge me, as I was 17 and had nothing to compare to. My ex was my best friend for many years, and we got on so well. At 17, he admitted he had feelings for me and was in love with me. At the time, I'd never seen him that way. He was very attractive, but I didn't have feelings. He sat in my bedroom and cried. He was in love with me and didn't want to see me with anyone else. I gave him a chance, and we began dating a few months later. It was great for a while. He was very attentive and clingy, I will say, but I was his first love, he said, and he was actually mine. In around October of 2020, I'd say, he started a new job where he made new friends who were older men and loved to go drinking. I didn't mind it, but it became more and more frequent, to the point he'd lie about visiting his grandmother when he was at the pub. Obviously, the pandemic came around, and honestly, I don't have much memory of our relationship during that time, though I do remember he was still working, and he'd sneak to his mother's house to drink. I remember one New Year's Eve, he left me in tears because I didn't drink, and he wanted to go drinking, and he left me all alone. He'd come in drunk 3-4 nights a week, usually Tuesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and verbally abuse me, make me cry, then call me a whinging crybaby. And one time, I clearly remember, he punched my wall, poured a can of cider over me and my new mattress, and on a different occasion, also sat with a Stanley knife to his neck. He'd also often make fists to me, but he never, ever, ever hit me. He'd wake up the next day and say he hadn't done anything and didn't remember, and would come with flowers and chocolates to say sorry. I tried to leave him after the incident with the Stanley knife, but he cried and said he'd kill himself and made me feel so guilty. Things were fine for a few months, but he'd still drink and be silly and keep me waiting up all night so I could let him in, and I'd wait up sometimes until 4 a.m. But again, I don't remember exact thing he'd done this time. I think he got drunk and called me at 4 a.m., standing on a bridge to a main motorway, telling me he was going to jump off it, when really he was in his mother's living room, and went outside and stood next to the main road he lived near, hence why I could hear cars. I remember breaking down on my parents' staircase, and my dad, who never gets involved, telling me to calm down and holding me as I was shaking. And I broke up with him, but he refused to move out, and we stayed living together as friends, but he was persistent in staying together and said he'd wait for me. About 2 months later, I went to uni and moved away, and would you believe it? Guess who moved in next door and went to the same uni as me? Him. He literally followed me to a whole new city, and one of my aunties literally took his side. At this point, he'd quit alcohol and seemed a little better, so I agreed we could stay friends since we'd be neighbors. He got very possessive and said if I met a new boyfriend at uni, he'd laugh at me and beat him up. One time, he knocked on my door, and I'd left my cousin upstairs on video call. It was on speaker, and I didn't think it was him at my door as I was expecting a parcel. Obviously, my cousin must have been talking to her husband whilst I was downstairs, and my ex came barging in, pushed past me, accusing me of having a man in my room. He went upstairs looking round. I was terrified, and I lived an hour from my parents and was so scared they had to come get me. My cousin, who was on the phone, overheard everything and pleaded with me to get an injunction, but I didn't want to ruin his reputation. He might have just been acting out of character. Then the next day, his grandma passed away, and I'm a very soft person, and I felt bad and loved his grandma, so I was really upset too. I agreed to be there for him and support him, but then his drinking began again, this time way worse. One night before a 9 a.m. lecture, he drank a bottle of amaretto to himself. I was empathetic and understanding, as he just lost his grandmother, and was there for him the best I could be. After a good talk, we agreed to fix things and work on things, so long as the drinking stopped and he got help for it. Then, in my second year, due to a housing issue, I had to move back to my parents' house and commute. He lived with me again, as we were basically back together and a lot more stable, or so I thought. He randomly less and less stopped staying with me and was drinking again, and since it was my parents' rule, they'd say if he was out drinking, he had to go home to his mother's, as my parents go to bed early. And then one day, we had a big argument, and I told him to leave me alone, and he was so awful to me and actually left me alone for real. But all he did was continue to drink. We split up for 5 months, had each other blocked everywhere, and didn't see each other for 3, but I'd say on a weekly occurrence, he'd reach out to my family, asking how I am, asking to talk to me, and then he'd block and unblock me. He admitted he slept with a random woman when he was drunk a week or 2 after we ended, which was difficult to hear. Then he blocked me again after dropping that on me. I ended up hospitalized in a psychiatric ward, as I was basically having a mental breakdown because of what he'd done to me, along with my uncle dying and uni stress too, mostly due to him though. Stupidly, in the June time, I bumped into him, and he unblocked me everywhere and texted me a lot, constant TikToks and nice messages. This was him love-bombing me, and I fell for it. We started dating again, and in the July officially asked me to be with him again. My parents said they'd seen a huge change in him too. It was all an act. About 3 weeks into us being back together, he nearly died from drinking, and to cut it short, from the August and 5 months after, he had 6 operations in 5 months. When he was recovering and getting better, he was fine, as no alcohol. But there was one night where we'd argued, and I was drunk, and her actually been spiked. That was a whole other traumatic story in itself. But he was at home, and I remember him taunting me on the phone, saying he'd slept with different women when we broke up, and then saying he didn't, then saying he did, which he knew how much the thought of that hurt me. This happened before I got spiked. But apparently when I got home to my parents, I slapped him on the shoulder and told him to get out of my bed. And they gave me a drink to calm me down, and I threw water over him and told him I hated him for everything he did to me, along with a lot of hatred and tears about what he'd done to me. This physically hurts me because I have never, ever reacted with violence or ever retaliated to him. I don't even remember majority of it, which makes me feel worse. I just remember being in hospital the next day and having hourly blood tests in case of blood clots, etc., as I'd been spiked. The hospital didn't test for what drug buy, but they said something was in my system. Apparently, my parents had to pick me up from my friend's hotel room, and my friend had to call my mother as I was really unwell and had only had 3 drinks across a 6-hour time frame, and she said there's no way I could have been so drunk. I felt so violated too, and then to know I reacted like that kills me. Anyway, I didn't drink anymore, and things were fine with us, and I apologized to him for what I did know about what happened that night, and he said he was just glad I'm okay and told me to not go out anymore, which I only do on occasions. The months after were fine, but then, December, he went downhill worse than ever. A doctor said at Christmas he could have 1 unit of alcohol, but instead him, his mother, and brother had a field day. New Year's Eve, he spoiled and didn't turn up because he was drinking. He had my father breaking down in tears and in a really bad way because my parents were so distraught at how he was still treating me after everything. Me being a fool let him take me on a date to say sorry, and we spent the night in a hotel, and it was so perfect. The following week, in the final week of January this year, we went to London together, and things really weren't adding up. A friend of his texted him saying, "Did you meet that girl then?" But I was on his phone and I said, "What on earth is that meant to mean?" He went crazy saying she was talking about me because she knew he was going to London, but it just wasn't sitting right. A week after we went to London, he ignored me, and eventually I ended it as I saw he'd been giving out his Snapchat and drinking as usual. I found out in April he had a new girlfriend, who he had cheated on me with prior to going to London. He'd been lying in my bed at my parents' house texting her while I slept after we'd done the deed, and also in London whilst I slept. The lies he'd told me honestly came as second nature. He is a master manipulator. She gave me all of the facts. She said she didn't know about me but had suspicions, and when she asked about me, he'd go crazy. And the lies he told about me and said I abused him, he's used that one time against me. As if mentally abusing your partner so much they literally want to die, and then cheating on them isn't the highest form of emotional abuse. I know it's my own stupid fault for falling for his tricks, but with that came love and affection. He got with her the day after we ended, and to cut it short, about 9 weeks in, she is pregnant to him, which has been his final act of revenge to me, as he knows I've had issues around PCOS and so on, and I'm not sure if I can carry children. She has continued to stalk my social media, which isn't even in my name. But what does she expect? We'd been finished one day. He's told her so many lies too. He said we broke up in 2021, and silly things like I never cooked for him. For her to find my social media, she'd had to do a lot of digging, as it isn't in my name. She knew about me in the end and chose to stay. I've had her friends I don't even know pick arguments with me, saying, "Think how the new girl feels when she sees your repost." Firstly, I didn't know she even viewed my page. She was going out of her way to look. And two, I was the long-term girlfriend, and she found out about me and chose to stay. And three, I can repost what I like. If the shoe fits, she clearly has a reason to think it's another or her situation. She wronged me the day she decided to stay and still has the nerve to stalk me and cry about me. Nobody cared about my feelings. Even his mother and friends lied for him, which is why the new girl started to have suspicions, as dates and so on didn't add up. He said when we went to London, we had a separate hotel, but we shared the same bed and had sex. He was my boyfriend. I thought I could trust him. I knew he was troubled, but I thought he was drinking, not cheating. It's so violating that somebody could risk my spiritual and physical health in such a way. He's my only sexual partner, and it's made me never want to be intimate again. He's also had a lot of money out of me and my parents, which I doubt we'll never see. It's absolutely broken me, and I find it impossible to forgive myself for my reaction. I know I was under the influence of a substance, which wasn't my fault, as well as alcohol, but he tells people I abused him when they was the only time I ever retaliated, and it literally makes me hate myself. It wasn't a conscious choice I made, unlike everything he did to me. I think I really should get therapy, but my brain keeps romanticizing the good times, and I just can't believe he'd do this. Even if nobody replies, I just hope venting will help me. Thank you if anyone did read this far.